on, you bastard!
Brought to you by supporters who probably have better taste than this schmuck.
Combiner skeletons are valid, y'all just mean. Every time I post something positive about a modern combiner or something negative about an older combiner, it's all anyone in the comments can ever seem to talk about. Over and over again, I constantly hear
Skeletons aren't real combiners. Combiner Wars did it better.
But like, no. Who decided that skeletons were an insult to designer engineering? You know they've been a thing since Generation 1, right? Not to mention combiners outside of Transformers can get up to all sorts of weird and wacky shit. Who's to say what is and isn't a combiner? It worked then and still works great now. It might seem like a cheat, but the articulation and stability afforded cannot be denied. Some of them, sure, they can be a bit lazy, but there are plenty of ways to make them interesting and have them do awesome things. Coincidentally, like the new Age of the Primes releases, go figure! And sure, maybe some sturdier ratchets could have fixed a lot of the stability issues, but not at the standard price points, and even then, combiner skeletons just work far more effectively. Plus really, how many of you actually use the Scramble City functionality? Genuinely! When the vast majority of collectors just plonk it on a shelf and leave it as is it really that necessary? Look, you can prefer the old system, but to write up skeletons and call them an insult to Transformers design on the whole? Yeah, no, it's stupid. Enough is enough. The proof is in the pudding. Combiner skeletons are valid, y'all just mean. So recently I had to take out Zeta Superitron Mini to film comparisons with some of the figures I was reviewing. I was basically doing two versions of Bruticus back to back, and of course that means I have to compare to other combiners. So unfortunately you gotta do what you gotta do. But I actually noticed something kind of interesting and kind of hilarious. But to take a look, we've gotta take Silver Arrow out of the chest. Now you may actually recall that Silver Arrow was my favorite of the sets. Sorta just by default, because I could see some of the ideas they were trying to do, even if it didn't quite pull it off. But it had some cool stuff to look into. But apparently I can't even take slight enjoyment from this figure, because let's take a look at the shoulder at the back. Maybe if I pull it out, you can see it a bit better. Yeah, that's starting to disintegrate as well. That plastic just shaved itself off. And keep in mind, this has been sitting in a box for the past several months. Pretty much since I last filmed it, because I don't really have a point to go back to it aside from comparisons. So yeah, it's disintegrating even more than the original review. God, I just love Zeta's ability to make figures even worse as time goes on. So even if the figure is passable at release, which this one isn't, it eventually falls to pieces and becomes completely useless, but by that point they've already got their money and everyone's already defending them as a viable product on the market. When everyone, including official products, makes things way better. Fuck Zeta. Just, do I need to keep saying it? When I was growing up, I was exposed to a lot of different Transformers media. Sure, I watched the movies in theaters, and caught every episode of Animated in the morning on Cartoon Network. But the internet was a vast and special place, and back then, the website basically had all the previous television media for free. But that wasn't all. The library had books. Books. One such book was a vintage collection of Target 2006, and in it I was privy to what would become one of my childhood faves, Straxus. I still can't remember much from the pages, it's all fallen out of memory, but my time being enamored with him still remains to this day. It's why I was so fond of the 2010 Deluxe Class remake. That was one of my favorite toys growing up, and to this day I still adore it, faults and all. As I grew older, and as the franchise changed and evolved, I really wanted a new version in line with the War for Legacy 86 combined aesthetic, and for the time it seemed like we'd be getting one. Rumors of a leader class version circulated for ages before they sort of went silent and everyone pretended they never existed. In hindsight, apparently this was the version we were meant to get. A weird throwback to that time he was a floating head in the comics. And, no thanks. Cool idea, but maybe not as a toy. I genuinely thought it was an AI image when I first saw it because it was so left of field and all over the place. Then it finally hit us, with little to no fanfare from the Leak Squad. The bastard from Darkmount became reality as a retool of Galvatron. At this point, I was a little more skeptical. See, in the years since, I'd given the New Age version a try, which itself was a retool of their Galvatron. Unfortunately, there was one key difference. This one was unbelievably shit. It's honestly the one New Age figure I genuinely hate. They're a fantastic company otherwise. But after that, I was cautiously optimistic, because conceptually, these two were doing the same thing. Thing is, there's something you should really do with Hasbro these days. Trust them. Time and time again since Legacy has begun, I've gone into something expecting to hate it and have been utterly blown away. While I didn't expect to hate Straxus by any means from the outset, I was concerned he'd underwhelm me. Turns out I had nothing to fear. Straxus the Galvatron mold was already brilliant, but this just takes it to a whole other level. The head somehow goes more accurate whilst still making this bonkers design work. You don't even notice it's flat as a pancake. That's usually the first thing you'd realize. The torso retooling has gone way further than I expected them to go, creating a monolithic pectoral section with the triangles picked out perfectly. Like, do you know how hard it is to pick out reds? Do you know how often companies get this wrong? Especially on a color as dark as this. Said red does get a bit wispy on the shoulders, but from a distance you can barely notice it. So all in all, they've done a really good job. I also love the subtle screen tones on show. They're there to bring the comic stylings to life, but subtle enough where Straxus can easily fit on the shelf with any of your other War for Legacy 86 figures. In fact, that applies to all the comic throwbacks, such as the black, what are these? I don't know, they're just cool is what. And sure, the accessories could be better, as the axe is pretty ill-defined and shaped, and the cannon is just kinda there. Mark. But if that's the worst thing this mode does, we're doing pretty well overall. The transformation is just divine, as the Galvatron transformation has always been. I've often seen people complaining that it's over-engineered for what Galvatron is supposed to be, folding in and out when the torso is supposed to just reveal the head and that's it. Personally though, I think it's an inspired use of mass reshaping that so easily could have done it lazily, like so many third-party versions do. I'll never forget messing with Galvatron the first time at a burger shop in Parramatta, where the chef kept yelling slurs at the staff in Italian. Okay, maybe it wasn't the best memory, but the point is, it's always been a fantastic transformation, and Straxus is no different. I'd argue it's even better now, as the arms properly lock into place and flow with the rest of the kibble. It's not something they had to retool, it's purely for vehicle mode accuracy, but I'm very glad they did. And the alt mode is great. It's a bit more canon-y than the comic by virtue of being a retool of old Galvi, but that alt mode was always great to begin with, so I don't see that as an issue at all. The fact they were able to make an alt mode out of this design at all is commendable as is, even if I still prefer the old wheel tank. It does get a bit messier towards the back now that he no longer has the iconic for Galvatron knee spikes, but it's an awesome trade-off with the new tooling up front. The three-pronged cannon surroundings are a wonderful new take on the old design, and I especially love how the axe becomes the classic spikes on top. Sure, it means the robot mode has to contend with weirdness with its accessories, but it's such a cool idea. The new cannon demolishes the original with its awesome sleekness, and I didn't even realize until Thew pointed it out, but the black stripe actually slides straight to the back. That's so subtle and so cool. In essence, Straxus takes everything Galvatron did so well and turns it up to 11. He's the serving-tiest of serving leader class figures, and for me, he is the definitive wearer of the Galvatron molds. I know a good chunk of it probably boils down to nostalgia, but the other versions just don't give me the same feeling that Straxus does. In a year where exclusives have been banger after banger after banger, this stands above them all and delivers an experience unlike any other. If you want to experience this mold in a singular capacity, this is the way to do it. Don't hesitate. Let Straxus into your heart today, you dumb f***. Lost episodes. Where do they come from? Where do they go? Where do they come from, Cotton Eye Joe? I've made a lot of videos over the years on the channel, but not all of them have seen the light of day. There was once a video I had for Studio Series Helicopter Drift showing how it was worse than Dropkick in every conceivable way. I was going through the filming process of Iron Factory The Fallen, the first one that is, but I felt it was just kind of a nothing script. I just wasn't really feeling it. 2 reviews I've done in the past have been outright removed due to copyright claims, and I do apologize for that. But this one's an interesting case. It's a Legendary video, and there hasn't really been a Lost episode in that sense before. See, when Blockies hit the scene before I even received any samples from them, everyone in the community was talking about them. You could not go 2 centimeters on any website without people discussing Blockies. And I kind of thought to myself, is it really justified? Are they really that good? So I thought, why not do a non-sponsored video? Why not just take a look at them and take a look at them objectively, which I did end up doing in the sponsored samples anyway. But still, there were issues that I ran into. And surprisingly, those issues were not to do with the fact that I was sponsored by Blockies. I didn't just get rid of the episode because I already had one that did it in every way. Even though I did use part of that video to explain how they were built, I kind of just repurposed that. No, the issue that I ran into was a bit more of a concern. Now, one of the big ways that Blockies keeps the costs down on these is, well, you can see from the box right here, they're blind packed. Instead of telling you exactly which figure you're gonna get, they basically have generic packaging with all of the optional ones on the side. You got anything from this series over here, as well as the Chase figure that I will probably never get. It's essentially like the Lego minifigure packets. You don't know what you're gonna get in them, but they have all of the things on the front here. You basically just have to take a gamble and open it up, and what I get. Let's see, I don't know who that is. I think it's Hawkeye? Oh yeah, it's a Hawkeye of sorts. It's Kate Bishop. But you get the idea. Much like those Lego minifigures, they're sort of just cheap things that you can collect all if you want, or if you got a bit of extra cash, you can just add this onto an existing order. Which is what I did when I first got them. I was going to pick up a comic. I think it was Destro number 3. It was very boring, but I picked up 4 of these at around the same time, and this will be my 5th one. Interestingly, at the time of recording this, I don't actually know which one of these I'm going to be reviewing. Yes, because I've decided I'm going to be filming the building process. I'm just going to see what I get and lock myself into it. You all probably know which one it is because you clicked on the video with the title and everything, but I flat out don't. So let's see what we got. It was the last one at the comic shop when I went to pick it up. Is it one I've gotten already, or is it a really nice one? Out we go, out we go. We got the 2 silver bags. The instructions are just generic. They all show Optimus Prime. So you don't really know until you crack these puppies open. Ah, it's Prowl. "We will get you," said Prowl. So Dropot looked inside his very own arm and found Double Bazooka and his other more bigger gun. You don't really need to separate these as much as you would a normal model kit because they are very, very simple. Like, building this is really easy. First thing you want to do is find the feet. They're exactly the same. They're identical, not mirrored. So you can use whatever you want. Just put them down to the side here. Next up, you want to take these pieces, which are the backs of the legs. And then you take these pieces, which are the ball joints, which again are also identical across all of them. And you plug it into the bottom of the foot like so. It has a nice click. One big gripe I have with these figures: clear ball joints. Much like the bump of Chicken Bumble, this seems like it's asking for trouble. Making load-bearing joints out of clear plastic is not a good idea. In fact, I've heard reports of these being broken. So it's not an isolated incident. It does happen, so you do have to be quite careful. And what you want to do again is take the front piece, and sometimes the printing is different, so take a closer look at that. Since I'm going to be doing the right leg first, I'll do that over there. That has highway, and the other one will be patrol. Clip those together. Clip him into the feet. And same with the other leg. If you really want to keep them out of the way so that they're easier to keep track of, you can also place them on the stand. It's a nice little thing to do. It helps you get a bit more leverage on them too. There are 2 identical sprues, which become the shoulder assemblies, the elbows, and the knees. And the elbows and knees are both identical as well, so really you can just use whatever. The model kit builder in me is telling me to use proper clippers for this, but they are quite loose, so you can sort of just push them out. And for the purpose of this video, just to keep things a bit simple, I'm going to do that. Plus, if you happen to be building these in like a shopping center or something because you just bought them, you can also do that. Though, don't build these in a shopping center. It's sort of a disaster waiting to happen, with lost pieces and all that. And here you take the 2 pieces and you peg them together, and that is what you got there. And it doesn't really matter which side you clip them into, it's all basically the same. You just kind of peg it in there we go. And of course, second verse, same as the first. If you want to do all of these back to back and then just have them lying around to assemble, you can also do that too. Good news, the thigh pieces are completely identical. Again, they are not mirrored. So it doesn't matter which order you put them in, they both work either way. Waist joint, it is symmetrical, so again, it does not matter which way you put it. Now, the waist armors do get a bit different. Some of them are different from front to back, like Prowl's here, but some of them are also identical, so it really depends on which one you're getting. With this one, it's the same piece, but one has printing, one doesn't, so that's pretty self-explanatory. Also is pretty self-explanatory, just pegs in, you pull the shoulder pieces out, and peg them into either shoulder, whichever one you feel like. The front and the back pieces are pretty self-explanatory, you just kind of know what they already are. One thing that you do have to do is make sure the shoulders are lined up correctly, because they got those 2 pegs there that'll actually line up with the way the backpack and the chest plate work. So that when you click everything together, it should all go nice and solidly, and these ones should only get a little bit of motion instead of way too much. The shoulder pieces are identical though, so you can just pop them on however you like. Shoulder armor is sculpted identically, but the front parts are printed differently, so that's something to keep an eye on. Yours may be completely identical though, so just keep an eye on it. We'll need the joints to be made as well now for the elbows. Now, the arms are actually the one part that you do need to keep an eye on. They're the same across most figures, but you'll notice these ports on the outsides. They're actually for the accessories that they come with. So what you need to do is make sure when you go to peg it in, make sure that the hole is on the outside. That way you can ensure the full functionality of the accessories. Not the accessories are that crazy, but it's a thing that works a bit better. This sprue is for the hands. You can use whichever hand you feel like. I'm just going to use the fists because they're nice and simple. And this one will depend on the figure you get, but you'll notice there's parts on the back for different backpack pieces. In the case of Prowl, you've got door wings that just peg on the backpack like so, and posable cannons like so on the top on the ball joints. Come on, get in there. Ah, that is way tighter than it should be. Last but not least, everything should be very self-explanatory. You take the last ball joint and peg it into the top there. Take the face sculpt and peg it in the top there. Yeah, that is very creepy. And you take the helmet and it should just get on the top there. It's squishy until it clicks into place. There we go. And you can just remove the accessories and everything else you might have. Ooh, spare ball joints. Don't know why that's there. And completed, basically what you see is what you get. It is a non-transforming figure, as many licensed third-party figures are. You know, technically what we call third-party isn't actually third-party. Third-party refers to licensed figures like these. And what we refer to as third-party is actually basically bootlegs. But I mean, you wouldn't be dead Yeah, you're not hearing an editing mistake there. The audio just went at that point. This is why the video was cancelled initially. This is why I swapped things around. Just, I was editing up until this point, and then suddenly... Oops! There's no audio! For some bizarre reason, the exportation of the microphone audio just glitched out there. And unfortunately, I didn't have the original file to go back and take it from. Now, initially the plan was to re-record from that point. I mean, you would have noticed a difference in nail color change. But it would have been fine. It's just like, re-record, just make a joke about how I had to re-record this bit. Just go over everything I went through with that. It would have been easy. But then I ended up actually getting sponsored by Blockies, and I'm like, there's no real purpose. I can just reuse the building section and pop it into that video. It's one less thing for me to do. Nice and easy, no problem. But now looking back on it, I do want this video to be available to see in some capacity. I had a lot of fun recording it, not the most fun in the world, but it was kind of fun. And I don't like leaving things unfinished. I like a sense of closure, so here it is now, I guess. Unfortunately, the rest of the video will feature far worse audio. I do apologize for that, but unfortunately, you gotta do what you gotta do. So from here, we're continuing. But I mean, you wouldn't be dead calling those bootlegs in the community. It's just not how the colloquialisms work. But it is something to keep in mind, so when someone goes, actually, it's the bootleg. They're technically right, but they're still just being an asshole. And Prowl here is a pretty good figure. He has his problems, but for what you're paying, it's done really well. One thing I've mentioned on this channel many times before is the issues with third-party stylization, and that extends to licensed third parties as well. Many third-party figures just look really ugly because they're just stylizing it for the sake of stylizing it. They're not really picking a specific aesthetic. It's not something you can criticize every company of, but it's definitely there for a lot of them. Blockies, for the most part, don't fall under that. They have a very specific aesthetic, and it sort of works. It's not quite chibi, it's sort of in that half point. We got the exaggerated proportions with the bigger head and the bigger limbs and everything, but it doesn't go so far into it that it's a completely chibi figure. It pulls back just enough where you can tell what the point of the figure is, and I do appreciate that. The sculpting is pretty nice. It's angular where it needs to be, and it's blocky where it needs to be as well. Haha, blockies, I get it now. Poses reasonably. I mean, you got ball joints pretty much everywhere on the head, like so. Guns rotate, so you get a bit of posing out of those. 2 ball joints on the shoulders, but in practice it only really works on one and a hinge. Bicep swivel, elbow that gets you just beyond 90, wrist ball joint, waist swivel, which is very nice, ball joints at the hips that have no impeding whatsoever, thigh swivel, and an extra knee bend, and a ball joint at the foot, so the articulation works all right, except for the fact that the ball joints are made out of clear plastic. Again, as I said, this can lead to breakages, and I've heard of them leading to breakages. But that aside, another interesting thing to note, technically there's not really much paint on the figure. I mean, you got a little bit of paint on the head crest, and I guess the eyes maybe, but the rest of this isn't actually paint, it's tampografts. Yeah, they're all tampos, not really traditional paint. Tampograph waist section, tampographed hips, tampographed legs, tampographed shoulders, tampographed torso, tampographed doors, and they're done very, very well. I suppose doing that instead of paint helps keep the cost down, which, you know, it's a pretty clever way of doing it. And they go really hard with it, like they've even tampographed the back of it. That's not a sculpted light bar, which is a bit unfortunate, but the fact they went to the effort is quite commendable. And that's really one of the big ways that they keep the costs down. The way I see it, there are 4 main methods. You've got the fact they're blind packed, so you don't know which one you're going to get. The fact you have to assemble them, they're not pre-assembled, so assembly costs are kept down. The fact they don't use paint because everything's tampographed. And then there's a 4th thing, which might at first seem a little bit iffy, but I actually think it's brilliant. These figures are, in essence, at least from what I've experienced with this wave, all retools of each other. Now, I'm not just talking about redecos and retools that would make sense, like having the Datsuns be exactly the same. Obviously, Blue Streak is going to be exactly the same as Prowl. It makes sense. You know, they were the same toy in G1, what do you expect? But no, it actually goes beyond that. Let's bring in Jazz here, another figure that I have from the same line. Notice anything interesting? Torso is exactly the same, just with wheels instead of guns. The inner chest is exactly the same. The shoulders are exactly the same. In fact, the entire arm assemblies are exactly the same. These are the exact same assemblies. The hip sections are exactly the same. The thighs are exactly the same. The feet are exactly the same. And the front of the legs, well, they aren't. But you go to the backs and you'll notice that the actual assemblies, the back sections, which form the overall skeleton of the figure, they are also the same. And you'll notice that even the back section is completely the same, just with different tampographs. And this works really well, so you can actually take the wings off Jazz so that you can go for the toon accurate look instead of the toy accurate one. A nice little feature I found with him, although I've always preferred the door wings personally, just because, I don't know, I like toy accuracy. But it goes to show they're largely based around the same figure. They're largely based around the same inner workings. And it goes even further than that. Let's bring in Ironhide. Surely this is going to be different, right? Same inner chest, same arm assemblies, same thighs, and the same inner workings on the legs and the same feet. The front of the legs are different, but everything else is the same, even the same fists. Even the heads are exactly the same, it's just the helmets that are different. And this is actually one of my gripes with this figure. The face sculpts they've done kind of look a bit ugly. They look better when they're visored up or they've got a face mask on them. As it stands, they're a little bit iffy in the way they're designed. But still, they're reusing a lot of pieces. Even Optimus Prime, of all things. He has a lot more new parts than you would expect. New torso, new shoulders, new waist section, new fronts of the feet, new waist section, new fronts of the legs. Even new backs of the legs. They've put a lot more into this. But the waist section is still the same. The forearms and the fists are still the same. The thighs are still the same. They're all retools of each other, and that's a big way they're able to keep the costs down. And that's why they're able to charge so little for these. Basically a few bucks more than being an Authentics figure. And yes, they don't transform. That is a big downside with them. They're never going to be as fun as a traditional Transformer because that conversion is gone. Aside from maybe rebuilding a few of the Dinobots in both dinosaur mode or robot mode. At their core, they're never going to be as playable as a proper Transformer. But for the price you're paying, basically, they're doing really well. And they even come with accessories. I mean, Prowl's basically got his little blaster, nice and simple. Also a retool, Jazz has the exact same blaster, just in black. Blue Streak obviously does as well. And even Ironhide, though he comes with a blast effect. And if you want, you can also use these open hands to have a sort of more relaxed pose in the fists. So I'm not really a fan of them personally. I don't think they really contribute to much of the posing, but I mean, you can see how they work in the thumbnail. They can give you the JoJo pose if you really want to. He also comes with a badge that has an Autobot symbol on one side and a Decepticon symbol on the other. This is why you have to have the ports on the outside so that they can function with the badge thing here. It's a bit unwieldy to use and I don't really get much use out of it, but it's a thing you can do if you want to. And finally, also comes with a stand. I know I've been making JoJo jokes, but I don't think that's appropriate here. It's basically what you've come to expect. You got the logo over there, puts them in an A stance, nice and easy. But one thing that I find really neat is that you can actually connect them together. A bit tight to get in there, but yeah, once you get in, you can have them all lined up on a shelf in a nice display. This might be how I display my blockies, and I do think I'll probably get some more after this. I'm not going to pretend they're the most amazing figures ever, but for the price, they're pretty good. I'd sooner take one of these over those dog shit Authentics figures. I would definitely do that. And for anyone curious as to why he's showing up in the Legendary Marathon, he is very much a small scale figure, coming in at 7 centimeters wide and 10 centimeters tall. And for size comparisons, here he is next to a standard Legion figure. Goes to show when you factor in paint costs and assembly costs and the fact it has to transform and the fact it's not blind packed, there's not a lot you can really do at this price point. I still do very much think this is worth that same price bracket, but it goes to show you're getting a lot for what you pay. Especially when you consider he's basically the same size as a standard core class figure. If not a little bit bigger, but I guess they can do that given all the concessions. Anywho, finishing off a standard modern Micromaster, a standard modern Minicon, a not so standard Lego minifigure, and crumbs.
And yeah, I guess that was the lost episode. I don't really have the traditional intro and conclusion like I would in the normal space that I used for the other Legendary episodes this year, or I guess last year, although still this year, given it was delayed to absolute shit I ended up swapping it around before I filmed that section, so that just doesn't exist. Instead, it's just me over here. Hello there! But aside from that, there's not really much I have to say here. Not much that I can say that I haven't already said in these 3 videos here. I am recording this before Blocky's Bonanza 3. I don't even know what the title's gonna be, to be honest. But yeah, that's it from me. If you're watching this on Patreon, hope you enjoyed this lost episode, and if you're watching this in the doc takes, hope you enjoyed this lost episode. Usually I have such conclusive endings, but I don't really have that for this time. Transformers is home to many a weird and wacky redeco, but there's one that always seems a safe bet, regardless of series and style. It's a scheme so guaranteed it can often even make bad figures passable, or sometimes even great. The Black Convoy effect, where you take any figure and give it a primarily black color scheme, making sure to include some highlights in turquoise, purple, or whatever you feel like. Although technically you could count G1 Skywarp as the first big example, the whole evil repaint thing really kicked off with Black Lio Convoy in Beast Wars 2. Yes, I'm pronouncing it that way, I don't care that it's not correct. Just think about how many times something's been pretty mid until you slap turquoise and black onto it. And hey presto, it's suddenly awesome. Or even some truly awful toys suddenly given new life within the Dark Void. It's a pretty self-explanatory system, and to this day, it's a wonderful method to revitalize a mold. Even cases where I wouldn't think it would work, it still surprises me. Just make sure to balance your highlights, as only including black can make things go in the opposite direction with boredom. So recently, my partner's been getting into Transformers collecting. I swear it's not my fault, the pull of the franchise is just too great. Fortunately, the way in which the community depicts a bunch of figures means that Z can make the best informed financial decisions. Not always the case though, just as I sometimes get stuck with disappointments, so does Z. Hatchet was one of the ones I always planned on skipping. Although I wanted it for years, I think a lot of it actually boiled down to the fact it was never properly released. And it was more so the longing for a chance not given. You know when you wait years and years for something to come out and the company keeps saying no but you're drawn to it anyway? Then you finally experience it and it's just okay. That sort of thing. The idea that it was cancelled is often more enticing than the actual product itself. The car mode is nice at least, though it is bog standard simple. Full black with some painted windows and headlights, nothing special. My partner's very into cars, so this was initially what drew her in. It is a very nice car mode, mind you, but like all Studio Series cars are nice. It does feel like it's going to explode at a moment's notice, though. It never feels like it wants to stay together. Apparently this is common with the mold this is a retool of, though I've never experienced said mold. I've only ever handled the mold that mold is a retool of, though I can't seem to find it at the moment. Don't think I've sold it, just think it's somewhere. Still, at least the pin wheels are nice. It's sort of a lost art with Transformers. I get it's a budgeting thing, but I wish more would do this. The transformation really does feel like a displaced older Studio Series figure, none of the clever panel wizardry we get with more modern releases. Just endless backpack folding and calling it a day. Can't even keep the panels in the right spot. The arm bits just endlessly fall out when they really don't need to. It's not like they parts form or anything. The tail does though, which, come on, that's just unacceptable. And I guess the beast mode is adequate. The kibble looked a lot worse in stock photos, but in hand, it feels pretty flush. Honestly, the butt plate actually looks better if you leave the tail off, as it becomes more streamlined. Not like the tail locks in place very well anyway. At least the head sculpt is pretty cool. You can tell this is where most of the retool effort went, because it's more carefully crafted than any other part of the body. This figure is fine, I guess, but as a second Transformer anyone would ever buy, I can see why it would seem like quite a shock. I mean, going straight from Strong Arm to this is surely going to be whiplash, but I can't call it that great either. There's definitely far worse on the market these days, but I wouldn't have bothered getting one myself. Especially since the Cyberverse one back from the original film is way better. And that's not just because it has what I categorize a superior alt mode, inaccurate or no. Really should redo the review for these ones. Maybe in 2026. I'm just glad it wasn't a real stinker, as starting out with that can put someone off the franchise entirely. Yeesh. Value is often a heavily debated topic with figures. How do you tell if something is worth the price? How do you ensure you're not being taken for a ride? There's also multiple factors to it as well. Different levels of value. The value might be in one area, but not another. Wow, that's a lot of uses of the word value. Anyway, we zoom in on Red Alert. I wouldn't consider him a bad figure, nor an amazing figure. He's just adequate, which usually doesn't make for an interesting review topic. However, he does have me thinking recently. The Unicron trilogy was very particular in its build style. Big chunky figures that prioritize prioritize big motions instead of subtle complexity. And lately, said era of collecting has entered the nostalgia gauntlet. People want accurate Unicron Trilogy updates. Not homages, not compromises, the real effing deal. Modern budgets simply don't allow such though. It's very difficult to get that across, so stepping up a budget bracket is required. Red Alert is a Voyager class figure, and he very much fills out that price point. He's in the same vein as 86 Ironhide, a deluxe-ish figure that bulks out and uses the price point to his advantage. No hollow points, entirely housed and framed clear plastic inserts. Pinned wheels, extra joints wherever they can fit, chunky and dense plastic. More than any figure in the Unification era, bar probably Armada Megatron, he perfectly feels like a Unicron Trilogy release with articulation added. No engineering wizardry, no half measures, just the real effing deal. So in the discussion of raw budget, sure, he is absolutely worth the price. But what about in other aspects? The engineering is bog standard simple, basically deluxe level, because that's what his original toy was. It makes sense, but it doesn't quite feel in line with the modern style of what a Voyager is. Nothing surprises you, wows you, goes over the edge. He's the perfect example of cromulence, and if you're incredibly nostalgic for Armada, I'm sure he'll be your figure of the year. They've even listened to the feedback and added all the gimmicks back, minus the minicon. No doubt if they did a stalker like this, I'd react the same. So yes, on a raw plastic level, he's worth it. But in terms of play functionality, there is something missing. There's a void here in the same way I felt with Commander Class Rodimus. But without the engineering to back it up, I can't help but feel disappointed. This is a case where Hasbro has delivered exactly what fans of the original show have asked for, and a case where what I want from a figure is entirely perpendicular. Sometimes it crosses over, but in this case, not so much. Is he bad? Hell no. Is he good? To many, he's fantastic. But to me, he lacks the value I look for in a toy. Sometimes figures just aren't for you, and in this case, nah, he's just alright. So YouTube's finally properly fixed their increased shorts length. So I can do this thing I've been wanting to do for a while. Here's every Legend scale combiner in my collection, ranked from worst to best. We're just counting Legends 2005 onwards, so G1 stuff isn't included. In last place, as if there were ever any doubt, Zeta Superitron Mini. The only toy on this list to keep disintegrating after the review was finished. Disgusting! In 11th place, Prime Cyberverse Abominus. A very ambitious release for the time, but hasn't aged particularly well. Honestly, the 10th holder just does the concept better with Takara G1 style Revenge of the Fallen Devastator. The standard colors would be in here somewhere, but my copy was unfortunately stolen. Pain! At number 9! New Age Devastator. Although functionally better than most of the others on this list, even I can admit the skeleton on this one is extremely lazy. Better as individual bots, I say. In 8th place, we have Legacy Dino King. Although I don't think it's as cohesive as Volcanicus, it's still a cracking figure, and one I'm glad they were able to get done, even if it led to sacrifices across both versions. Next, it might seem weird that I'm placing Hulky above the New Age version, but honestly, I think is just a figure that's more in tune with what I want as a collector. As a full package, she's just more fun to mess with, especially in combination conversion. Then we have the classic, the OG, the GOAT. Iron Factory Bruticus still clears many these days. Though easily Magic Square trumps it. For all the faults it has, it just comes together better. Though not as sturdily as our 4th place, the Iron Factory Decepticon Justice Division. Such a creative concept, and none of this does anything to compromise the individual members. Though sometimes, simpler is best, with 3rd place, Legacy Volcanicus. Admittedly, the DNA kit is what makes this set, but the sheer presence of this guy is unmatched. Easily the best dino combiner on the market, at least visually. In 2nd place, Iron Factory comes back again with their Lio Kaiser. I still don't have their Death Cobra, but as an essentially complete Lio Kaiser, this delivered on pretty much everything I could want. And taking the top spot, was it ever any surprise? It's Magic Square Menasor. No combiner to this day has delivered on the customizability and engineering ingenuity across the board to this level. That's kind of where it sits at the moment, but obviously this might not remain the same forever, especially with new combiners on the horizon. But for now, it's a pretty good lineup. Legends combiners are pretty fun. Who'da thunk it? Everybody loves LEGO Optimus Prime. It's probably one of the most popular LEGO icons set of the past few years. Still selling like hotcakes everywhere. However, with its creation, it's opened the floodgates to a world of other brickformer designs. Not all of them are janky either. Some of them are actually quite lovely. Educiro Optimus Prime, designed by the illustrious Alan Yap, is exactly the kind of brick-based transformer I'd wished LEGO Prime could be. It's a lot smaller, leading to greater ease in posing. And unlike the official version, the articulation actually functions properly in most areas. I mean, the waist was a little loose, but but like, that was easy enough to tighten up. The stylization on this thing is awesome, leaning heavier into the classic stylings than Alan's other project I've taken a look at recently. It's super sleek and super dynamic, and also super ballsy using the Autobot symbols right off the bat. Wasn't expecting that, as they're nowhere to be seen on the box art. Transformation is apparently based on the Power Master rendition, but I'm more so seeing the classics version with some more well-rounded front panel management. The vehicle mode also appears to channel that a lot too. Incredibly swish, even more solid and cohesive than the official, and the perfect size to roll around and have fun with. Honestly, while the LEGO version is more important to me in terms of my collecting journey, as a figure, I'd honestly say this just does it better. It's probably able to do so because it's smaller and less focused on being a display piece, but doesn't that usually give us some of the best releases in general? It's like Masterpiece versus Chug. Chug is just better suited to my own collecting tastes, as this Prime is. Between this and his Blur, I'm honestly hoping the transforming brickformer niche explodes even further, to give us a whole plethora of new designs. Would be really nice, but if this is all we get, yeah, I think this is the best one I own. I'd really love a Thunderbirds crossover. I just really would. But I just do not see it happening in this current climate. It's like the one thing Hasbro flat out won't make. Anything else can really happen. But like those weird, wacky crossovers, they're just not possible, unfortunately. Would love a 40k crossover. I think that would be kind of nice. But at the same time, there's a lot of things I would love Transformers to cross over with, but I just don't see it really happening. Transformers in the West, they usually cross over with 80s properties because they still think that 80s is the way everything is done. Oh no, it has to be He-Man. Oh no, it has to be G.I. Joe. Oh no, it has to be Knight Rider. All this stuff. And then some of the modern stuff like Sonic and Naruto occasionally, but those are a bit of a rarity. Japan's just like whatever's popular over there and whatever they have access to. Warhammer kind of fits into neither, and it's the same reason I think Thunderbirds is never going to get a crossover, which would probably be my big thing that I would really like them to do, but I don't see them really doing it. I would love them to do a Thunderbirds crossover, especially like a combiner or something, but the group that's really into Thunderbirds, or in this case Warhammer as well, and the group that Hasbro thinks their market is made up of, just doesn't really work. Now, of course, I think any of these crossovers would sell well, at least better than G.I. Joe, but unfortunately, it's not going to happen. And here I am blabbing about Transformers crossovers instead of actually playing Hollow Knight. A few years back, while on a trip to America, I came across what I think was a closing down Macy's. With my limited funds at the time, I purchased a clearance Thrilling 30 Skybyte, and I was immediately disappointed by it. Just a hollow mess, wasting most of its budget on gimmicks and really lacking in posing options. So, consider me excited when Age of the Primes announced theirs. Question is, did it do better than the original? Honestly, no contest. This blows the previous version out of the water. Not only are the limbs actually filled in this time with proper arms, but they finally have proper articulation to back them up. That articulation is basically standard for the current era, but that standard is pretty good as is, so that's a-okay in my book. And hey, at least he's smooth to pose, unlike the last dock take I did on the toy line. Now, due to using a faux part for the chest over the previous real one, he is lacking in a bit of paint, but honestly, it's still far from hateful. Plus, it's more accurate to the original, so while I think T30 was cooler in this one hyper-specific area, this is fine, and I see why they did this. I do feel the shoulder pads are a smidge hollow though, but again, he has to turn into a shark, which is a very difficult thing to do. Speaking of, they really nailed this. Gone is the annoying curve, replaced with a much better flat profile. The paint really goes hard here, and it's even quite posable thanks to its rather clever conversion. It is a little disappointing it requires sliding rails to get to this point, but although being my least favorite transformation joint, this at least isn't putting any weight on it. I'm not going to call Skybyte perfect by any means, but I'd be lying by omission if I didn't disclose that he does everything I wanted Thrilling 30 to do. He's just better in almost every conceivable way, and the one way he's kinda worse makes sense. He's just a nice solid Voyager in the same way many before him have been, and it goes to show that thankfully, despite everything going on in the world, Generations hasn't lost its magic. This comment right here. This is why I never want Hasbro Pulse in Australia. Believe me, they've tried. There were talks of it being implemented around the start of Legacy, but thankfully Hasbro Australia ultimately decided against it. Why wouldn't I want a one-stop shop for all things Transformers? Well, putting simply, accessibility. Let's say I want some new toys that count as exclusives right now. I can order them from Amazon, allowing me to make use of Prime for free postage and pay on release. I can walk into any multitude of stores and use a variety of different payment systems. I can go to EB Games and put a deposit on it, paying it off as I go. And one thing remains consistent. It's plentiful. Multiple stores have this stock. It's not arbitrarily limited or locked off for premium members before everyone else. With Pulse, you have one method for paying and nothing else. And heaven forbid they actually stick to street dates. Hasbro Pulse removes retailer choice and accessibility for those who might not want to go directly through Hasbro. Putting aside the absurd price gouging of Omega Prime for a second, in Australia we have the option of putting a $100 deposit on a HasLab project, then paying the rest off before release. Beyond that, multiple stores get access to said HasLab. What happens when Hasbro Pulse comes in and forces you to pay the entirety up front? Paying up front should be an option. It's something people should be allowed to do, but not forced to. If Pulse ever comes to Australia, all it will do is remove the choice of where to purchase from. No more will you get the surprise of walking into a store and seeing something you didn't expect to release. No more will there be accountability to deliver products. Because when companies have a monopoly, why would they innovate in customer service? We're not Southeast Asia, it's not this or nothing. We have options that fluctuate between early, late, and skipped entirely, but options nonetheless. So no, keep your Hasbro Pulse. We're good, mate. Where the actual are the Studio Series commanders? No, I'm not talking about SS86 or even potential Gamer Edition. I'm talking specifically Movieverse, the whole thing that started this toy line to begin with. Since the creation of the new Commander price point, Studio Series has always danced around the possibility of a release in the Commander brackets, even if it would make sense in many instances. Matter of fact, during prototyping for Revenge of the Fallen Devastator, there were talks to make one of the Torso members a Commander, but instead they went with bog standard leaders. Then we finally get them, and it's all 86. Magnus, Prime, Hook and Longhaul. Hell, the most recent rumors point to next year's release being a redeco of Kingdom Rodimus in more toon-accurate colors. That's 4 years without any Movieverse representation. 6 if you count the cancellation of the original Devastator idea. 7 if you consider the conception of the bracket at Jetfire. It's just a little overdue at this point. I'm not saying the 86 commanders we've gotten are bad. So far, from what I've experienced, they've been fantastic. I'm also not claiming we're back in the era of G1 oversaturation. I've lived through that. I've fought through that. This is not that. What I'm saying is a lot of people have been asking for Commander Class Stratosphere, and even the designers have said they want to do it. So why is corporate stopping them? Is G1 just going to go around in circles even more so until we get Commander Class Blitzwing and Autobot City? Are we just going to forget about Onslaught and Infernicus and DevCon because redoing G1 is more important? Again, no shade on the actual toys themselves, but I'm just at the point where I'm asking, where the actual are the Studio Series commanders? Since finishing my rewatch of the Movieverse with my partner, I've been thinking lately, Studio Series has a lot of figures that haven't been given updates. I know many folks try to defend the lacking releases with cases of, well, there's no one left. But like, no. There's actually a healthy amount that can be drawn from. Of course, setting boundaries, ignoring Transformers 1, because that's sort of up in the air and barely started. And obviously they're not doing the twins or any of the household appliances and background randos, as core class is basically dead. But that aside, we still have a hefty chunk. The 07 movie is basically done outside of a frenzy they'll sadly never do. And I guess maybe Dispensor, but with core class dead and the licensing around that really difficult, I just don't see that being feasible. But Revenge of the Fallen still has payload to do from Longhaul, as well as Demolisher from Scavenger. I'm honestly surprised they never properly did these. They're incredibly easy redecos, would have fit flawlessly in Buzzworthy before the line kicks the buckets. Maybe with a new Bullseye collection? Dark of the Moon is pretty much finished, but DevCon has been a pretty sad omission. Such a cool character design, and a leader price point would be perfect for him. Once we get past the original trilogy, though, things really start to open up. A massive chunk of the Age of Extinction cast is missing. Grimlock is still the only Dinobot by himself, though that's due to exclusively licensed bullshit. The others are probably a matter of when now, not if. But beyond that, no Drift, Hound, Evasion Optimus, either version of Bumblebee. TLK's a wash too, with no Hound either. No Megatron, though I'm not sure how they top the original Voyager. Barely any of the crew, with no Onslaught, Dreadbot, or Nitro Zeus with an actually accurate head sculpt. No Canopy, which again could just be an easy retool of Longhaul. No Day Trader, and no Squeaks. Though I feel Squeak should be packaged in with another existing leader, given, again, core class is basically dead. And no damn Infernicus. I get it'll be difficult to do, but given the lack of alt modes, it opens the door for so many cool ideas the designers could come up with themselves. Bumblebee is almost done, but a Cybertronian Optimus Prime is a bit of an omission. The model has subtle differences to the Earth variant, and we have seen his alt mode in concept art. But perhaps most frustrating of all, no Stratosphere from Rise of the Beasts. Is it because they refuse to give live-action Studio Series the Commander spot? I know a bunch of people will call these background no-names, but that's kind of what a lot of Studio Series has always been anyway.
anyway. Much like Diaclone, we're really close to finishing it, and I'd love for them to get across the finish line. Also big thanks to these two mad lads for helping me complete this list. Ely! So a couple of weeks ago, I went over the last few Movieverse characters Studio Series needed to do, and while I thought I got them all, predictably, there were just a couple that I missed. Firstly, hot off the heels of the last short, Hasbro basically confirmed that they would eventually do Skids and Mudflap, which is a far cry from their previous attitudes towards the characters. So whether they're draped in controversy or not, I guess they're coming. After that, we have Dragonstorm. I actually wrote an extra part for the original short and filmed a few shots to go with it, but for some reason I just never included it. Honestly, I think this one would be a hard sell. 12 dragons where we don't even know what they look like? Much as Infernicus is less popular, I honestly think he'd be a lot easier. And interestingly, all of the other bots I forgot are also from The Last Night, because god, that movie is a mess and manages to consistently purge plot points from my memory. Really, out of all the implied bots, the two I think they are the most likely to do, if at all, are Bulldog and Trenchcoat. There are more vehicle-only characters and background fellas implied to be there, but honestly, I don't consider those essential. Now, do I think they should do all of these? Yes, absolutely. Even if it takes 5 years or so, I do think they should give us the goods. But do I think they'll ever complete it? Well, until last week I thought there was a chance, but now they're shoving IDW into the Studio Series line. And that just speaks volumes about them not really wanting to commit. Nothing except the Generation 1 cartoon will ever get a complete lineup. Ah well, one can dream, and I'm never going to stop dreaming. We all make mistakes when it comes to collecting. As much as we try to convince ourselves we're better than that, we're beyond the rabble, turns out we're human. We f*** up sometimes. I think my biggest mistake recently would be Legacy pre-war Nova Prime, but not in the way you'd think. It's pretty easy to see what I disliked about him initially. At this point, I'd already been graced with 4 versions in my collection, each of which offered something different and unique. And adding him as a 5th, he was easily the most disappointing one. Not overall, that goes to Kingdom, followed up by Netflix, but at least for the ones that I actually have in my possession. The vehicle mode is really weak. The front loses a lot of its anger by going entirely white without much breakup, and the Sunbow Baby Blue just ruins it even further. I've discussed my disdain for this shade many times, and no doubt I will in the future many more. I hate it. I simply hate it. The back has no consistency in silhouette, and I can never remember the way the shoulder armor works, though that was also an issue on Guop as well, albeit to a lesser extent. The standalone vehicle has always kinda been jank, but this might be the most boring color scheme it's had. Though honestly, it's whatever, considering it'll probably be the least used mode out of the 4. The standalone robot, however, I don't know about this. On one hand, I've always had a soft spot for this design, given my affinity for IDW 2.0. It's definitely more alright with the colors, even with the baby blue doing everything in its power to bring it down, but by the same token, couldn't they have given us a new head or something? Did the retool budget run out? And it's still pretty weak source color-wise. Just okay overall, I guess. Really, the only configuration that actually looks okay is the armored mode, which I realized was the sentiment most fans held about the other versions over the years. But still, this does do a lot right. The way they subtly changed the proportions is still very nicely done. The new head sculpt is crisp, despite probably requiring some more paint. And although not articulated, the wings are still reasonably resplendent. It's far from the perfect Nova Prime, but it does do reasonably well. I just still feel like this whole package is being held back by the circumstances of its creation. This is probably the only way we could have ever gotten an official Nova Prime. But even so, at every point it feels like it's being held back by being a retool of a retool. With that said, my purchasing isn't my biggest regret. In actuality, it's not purchasing it. I had every chance to. It was available for pre-order for ages on Amazon, and it was stocked in abundance while I was on my trip to TF Nation 2 years back. I could have bought it at any time, yet I didn't. And you can see why. Everything I've said holds true. This is a disappointing leader class figure. So why was my heart filled with such regret? Why did I go out of my way to purchase one now? What changed? Third-party upgrades are sort of a hot topic these days. While they were all the rage at the birth of third party, for a time they fell out of favor while 3PMP took its place. But with how good Chug is these days, it sort of reopened the door for kits to make releases even better. And none do it better than DNA Design. Their biggest detractor actually gives insight into their biggest strength. People often complain too many pieces are included, artificially inflating the price. In actuality, they keep adding everything they can to ensure the release is done to the highest level. Every piece they can think of is included, bar minicons for whatever reason. And seeing what they did to Nova Prime, well, that
that's what had me regretting not picking him up. I have a general rule where I only upgrade figures I already like, not typically fixing figures I don't. But god damn it, I needed to break that rule to get DNA's Nova Prime kits. Of course, by this point, there were practically none on the aftermarket at a reasonable price, and Australia was skipping the reissue for some reason. As such, massive thanks to Princess Fluffy Buns over on Blue Sky for sourcing me one at a reasonable price. Thank Regardless, this kit reminds me a lot of the old Fans Project and Make Toys kits you'd used to get on older Chug stuff. Just put through a Unification era filter. It goes from an almost anorexic, spindly looking thing to a true beefcake like he deserves. I really like how they not only cover up the existing scaffolding, which was really annoying in vehicle mode, but also seamlessly integrate the new tendrils. Man's giving off Giratina vibes, and given that's my favorite Pokemon, I massively f with it. The gap fillers and kneecaps blend in flawlessly, and the new feet are really cool, even if they do wobble around a bit. People complain that he doesn't come with the leg extenders like the previous Magni, but I never thought the Guop variant of the mold has ever needed it. Beyond that, the sword he comes with, or two swords if you got the pre-order bonus, look utterly resplendent. Really puts primers to shame, and since my copy came with two, it actually works well as a replacement, right down to the Matrix handle. He even holds it much more naturally thanks to his new articulated fists, though this does mean the standalone robot has a slight case of Hulk hands, but I mean, who's really using this mode for anything? And honestly, for all the praise I have for the combined mode, I think the vehicle mode is where it shines the most. Like, even pet peeves of scaffolding being fixed aside, the whole thing has been filled out much better. They've practically covered every surface, even absurd stuff like the top with the waist piece, and the entire middle section with a sword. It's metamorphosed so much that I'm not even mad about the Sunbow windows anymore. It's barely noticeable now amidst layers and layers of beef. Sure, not everything is perfect, a few bits are a smidge wibbly, but like, it's so close to being basically the perfect Commander class Nova that I don't particularly care. As much as I'm a bit remorseful for breaking my upgrade kit rule, me dead, it was worth it. This has instantly become the best Nova Prime in my collection, out of two, sure, but it now demolishes the Iron Factory version. It was all worth it in the end, but we can go higher. We can take things to even greater heights, because why would we stop there? Toy Hacks is probably one of the oldest upgrade companies adjacent to the Transformers franchise. Getting their start under the name Repro Labels, they initially only did replacement sets for old battered G1 Junkers, before expanding into full-scale upgrade sets. While they often come under fire for using very small and finicky stickers, for those willing to give it time, their application can often be very therapeutic. Not every set they do is an absolute knockout. Some are a bit subtle, but still effective, and others just, I don't know what they were going for. But when they strike out, they really go the extra mile. Now, admittedly, the base set doesn't go as far as I would have liked, as they split it into standalone and DNA kits for obvious reasons. The leg vents are very much appreciated, but the midriff just doesn't get anything at all, which I find is a big shame. Also, nothing really for the backs of the wings, though considering how that's probably going to be covered up by the DNA kit anyway, I can see why they didn't bother. And hey, the window covers more than make this set worth it if you only have the base figure, though I still wish these windows had been clear plastic, but oh well. But the lengths they go to for the DNA design upgrades, it's just the perfect Nova Prime. The gold on the chest takes the resplendence to another level, while the wings now almost glow with a turquoise tinge. The actual glow effects between them are gorgeous, and the gold adornments bring the whole thing together. Even the kneecaps look way better with the segmented turquoise. I do kinda wish the shoulder pads had a bit more though. They're far too reserved when compared to everything else. The vehicle mode also looks a lot better, though much of its detail just keeps to itself in the tendrils, with the white just sort of peeking out. Again, I think the base set should have been more extensive. Still, at least it becomes a lot easier to remember which way the shoulder pads go now that there's different detail on each side. Overall, while this isn't the greatest Repro Label set of all time, as it has a few areas where I think it falls short, it does exactly what I wanted to. I've always wanted a Nova Prime, and many of the previous versions haven't quite done it for me, and the original Hasbro one definitely didn't either. It was missing a lot of that extra shine, but once that shine is added back in, it becomes something truly special. Is this whole process worth it? Really depends on the person. Usually for me it wouldn't be, but this time, I'm glad I broke my rule of only upgrading figures I like. I guess I see it as upgrading a DNA kit with a figure more so than upgrading a figure with a DNA kit, with the Toy Hacks just making it better after that. Either way, although this was a lot of work, especially with hunting down the original to begin with, and even more so applying the stickers, this is definitely a hell yeah for me. Yes, the level stands up and beats your ass. I know how difficult this boss is going to be, but we're going to get it done. No! Too many missiles. What the hell? Why so many? That is not fair. I'm just trying to get a vantage point, you imbecile. Okay, that was a mistake, but that's okay, because I'm gonna be okay. No, not in there. Okay, so I cannot aim at all with this guy. I can't aim for shit.
Nah, okay, so maybe if I just swap out for the traditional one, because those missiles are very easy to dodge. I've barely taken off any health. Problem is I can't reach high enough. Damn it, again, I'm too close. I do not go in the water. Why does none of this work? Water, of course. Can one of you hit? No, why do none of you lock on and hit? Come on. And that's all of my health gone. How is it none of this works? It's just like, no, none of your attacks work. What the? Did that not even do anything? What am I even supposed to do here? Damn it, nah! Oh, I'm so close to finishing this. Oh, f*** you. No, that's not fair. Why are you all shooting me? That's not fair. Damn it, because they were doing, so close. Damn. Jesus, not again. Damn it. How is this fair? I want to know. Oh yeah, just have him spam it every 5 seconds and just spam. Get closer. Damn it, no. You know this is supposed to be a kid's game, right? Jeez, he's only doing missiles now. Yes, and you can heal. But now there's these all over the place. So that's how you're supposed to do it, but then it just spawns all of these things and they just keep shooting at you. That's not fair. More of them? Why are you still spawning? They're spawning constantly. What the f***? That's not fair. I'm gonna leave it for there because I've just realized I've been streaming for 5.5 hours, and as much as I'd like to finish, as much as I can finish and continue, I have other things I need to do today. So I think the optimal strategy was, oh Jesus, bloody hell, it's just getting right off the bat. Run, bitch, run. I swear, I can't even stand anywhere. You're cheating now. You are absolutely cheating, and I am going to just die here. Like, how is this fair? Get in range, you cuckolds. How dare you? I wasn't anywhere near those missiles. That is flat out unfair. So I can't use my scope when I'm in the ocean? Who came up with that idea? How are you not smoking? The commenter was right. You can destroy the little guns. We can destroy all the guns. Where are you, you bastard? I can destroy the weapons, but that means that then they spawn, and then it's just really annoying. Damn it, why are there too many here? That just made things even worse. You Tidal Wave, I've had enough of this. I've had enough of your shit here. I've had enough of all of your shit today. Now is in his absolute spam mode. Neither of those hit. That makes no sense. That makes no sense. See, those were nowhere near me and they're still hitting me like a tank. That is not fair. And he goes again. Seriously, this guy's got more missiles than the IDF. How the hell is this supposed to work? Spawning those enemies at the end is another thing. There's just too many things. It's basically the fundamental idea of this game. Difficulty is just throw shit at the wall. Throw shit at the wall. More. More enemies, more projectiles, harder things, not enough things. It's not the best design, but I'm getting there. Run, missiles. Out of the way, move, bitch. Get out the way, bitch. I lost all my health. Move, bitch, get out the way, bitch. Ah! And I died. I was so close that time, god damn it. That was nowhere near me. You cheater, that was literally nowhere near me. How did I was on 4 health. What happened? Literally, what happened? 3? Why are there 3 of them? No, we can clutch this. Just die in their own fire already. Face me, you We did it! Yeah! Oh my god! We did it! Yes! Oh my god, I'm crying! Oh, we beat him! Oh, I don't even know how long that took. 4 hours the previous day, however many hours the last time, and an hour and a half today. Oh, I've actually got a headache. That actively, oh my god, that is just, oh boy. You! I hate these so much because I love them.
This probably doesn't make much sense, so let me take things back a bit. Long-time channel viewers will recall that I never particularly liked these molds. The Earthrise Seeker design, and especially its conehead sibling, has always been a thorn in my side, aside from the occasional surprise here and there, and the battle charges were an absolute show of stupid faux part usage, awful tolerances, and abysmal color breakup. So with all of that, I should have gone into these hating them, and yet I was drawn to them on the shelves of King's Comics for whatever reason, and in spite of everything, I actually really like them. How the hell did this happen? How did two of my least favorite molds deliver one of my favorite releases all year? I suppose I can half explain the Elite Seeker with the Black Convoy effects, but even with that, other fantastic decos haven't elevated the mold as much as this has. Honestly, it's probably the red and orange highlights doing most of the heavy lifting, though one can't ignore how the dark grey smooths out a lot of the proportional issues. Really, my only gripe at this point was a brush with the QC gremlin, where the figure wouldn't transform thanks to some forgotten mold flash. An easy fix in the end, least more so than Omega Prime's recent full disassembly, leading to a gem mode that shouldn't work with its abundance of grey, yet somehow does. I guess Buzzworthy Seeker finally has a partner in versions I genuinely love. What even is this timeline? And Ground Soldier? How the is this sexy? The sky blue on this thing really carries across the vibrancy, making it a lot easier to put up with the fact that there's frequent tabbing issues. Yeah, it's annoying, but I just can't get mad when it looks this good. The transformation somehow actually seems fun this time. Maybe it's the tolerances, but after all this, I genuinely don't mind flipping it back and forth. More than that, in fact, I couldn't stop myself while on a ramen trip with my partner and a mutual friend of ours. And robot mode. Me dead, this is divine. Now that they fixed the main issue I had initially, being the color breakup, is just infinitely better. It's essentially the kind of deco breakup I really wanted to see from G2 Breakdown, in a place I completely didn't expect. With these far snazzier colors, I don't even care about the stuff like the hollow legs or the still stupid placement of the fake wheels. Really, my only gripe is how messy the head paint is. Beyond that, this is a genuinely great figure. How the did this happen? How the hell did two of my least favorite molds get turned into one of my favorite releases of 2025? How did these two end up being better than the ground-up new design they made specifically to celebrate the game? Hell, how did they manage to do the cell shading to this level, making me not even care we got rid of clear plastic? This is a two-pack that shouldn't have worked on any level, but me am I glad it did. Does feel there's an air of smugness towards me on it though, with the big cackling face on Ground Soldier's crotch, laughing at my insolence. I think it's earned it though, because this is one killer two-pack. So apparently, Transformers-themed Ramune just showed up in Australia. Yeah, I caught wind they were showing up at a few IGAs, and lo and behold, there it was. And since I already like the drink, I figured I'd have to give it a shot. For those who never heard of this, it's basically a Japanese variation of lemonade. Think Sprite, but better. Looking into the company itself with the handy-dandy QR code on the back, it looks like they specialize in plastering popular licenses onto soft drink cans. Nobody tell my partner they have cinema rolls. Z doesn't need this knowledge. The artwork is a sort of traditional Chinese take on the evergreen design. At least I assume they're Chinese, as that's where the company hails from. My guess is this artwork was used elsewhere in some promotional material of sorts. Probably Lunar New Year, but if you know where it's from, sound off in the comments below. Wouldn't mind high quality scans. But how does it taste? I mean, that flavor seems pretty complicated, right? Well, let's give it a taste. It's Ramune. It's literally standard Ramune, maybe a little sweeter than usual, but that's just because different companies manufacture the drink in different ways. It's not a copyrighted thing, it's just a type of drink over in Japan, and consequently also China and the rest of the world, in the same vein as lemon, lime, and bitters. Truth be told, this whole thing is pretty pointless. Much like their other products, it's an existing soft drink with a fancy label on it. Even so, it's kinda nice to find random Transformers merchandise out in the wild. In an age where the franchise's media future is uncertain, it's good to know at least our soft drinks are safe. For now. Can we just take a moment to acknowledge the state Transformers is in? A mere decade or two ago, a release like this would have been an e-hobby thing, or through fun publications, forcing collectors to fork out the same price as a Titan to even have a chance at seeing one in person. And yet, here it is, on shelves today without issue. Perhaps too much. Magnificus is known for being quite the shelf warmer. The fault of incredibly dumb selects packaging. Thank they've changed the way it works these days. Hope we see a renaissance of this line in this newfound packaging style. Regardless, Magnificus is always a design I've been fond of, combining my loves of pre-TF and the Black Convoy effect into one snazzy redeco. Admittedly, the e-hobby fiction surrounding it is a bit daft, way too edgy for something that essentially turns into a microscope. Okay, point taken. But regardless, it's a lovely deco, provided you have the toy hacks. Yeah, this is one of those sets that is made by its upgrades. As stock, it's a little simple. But once you get this guy decked out, he really shines. The extra red does way more than you'd expect, and the battle damage might be one of the most beautiful cases I've ever seen. Well, one of anyway. He actually looks appropriate for the batshit gladiator backstory Takara threw at him. And not only that, but the tank mode now makes sense. I've always loved the tank mode, so annexing it never quite felt right to me. Yeah, no it didn't. Look, I'll be real, this is the kind of design not many people are going to be able to get into. It's a plain mold, and the base Magnificus doesn't do much to get above that. With that said, I'm a weirdo, and this is right up my alley.